This is
Vice is from the bike shop.
This is like when you start the podcast before the podcast.
Welcome back to the Progress Over Everything podcast. So I was thinking for this week's podcast, what we should do is upload the full interview, the full audio of you and Paul sitting down talking at Stumptown Axes. Paul was our February feature, for anyone who doesn't know, for our Out of Office series, which is our series where we head out of our office, we go to someone else's, and we learn more about their lifestyle, their business, their goals, and basically their pursuit of progress and how it aligns with flags and all that good stuff. So what do you think of that idea?
Who are you talking to, Ragz?
Flexing with a camera talk.
We're golden.
What do you want to start with?
Introduction.
Who are you and what do you do?
My name is Paul Flanagan.
How embarrassing.
And we...
Hold on, Paul Flanagan.
Quiet on the set.
Here we go.
Take it again.
Who are you and what do you do?
My name is Paul Flanagan, and I make axe handles and restore axes. And adventuring in some other projects too, with some tomahawks eventually, hopefully too. And wandering through life, trying to figure out how to turn this hobby more into a business. Or I guess I have, sort of.
Yeah.
By mistake.
I think you have.
Yeah. It's strangely like it started as a kind of a fuck you to not being able to fucking get a job.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, fuck this, I'm going to create a brand myself. And I started with a sewing machine because I was like, I'm going to sew just a pair of shorts and just show these fucking idiots, like, just that.
Oh, I like this.
You know, I'll copy somebody's shorts and fucking say it's cool guy brand.
Yeah.
And just be like, it's because a lot of this shit is marketing. A lot of stuff, you know, like, you want to make a good product. But at the end, you want to capture something. You want somebody to have an emotional connection to your brand.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll fucking do that. And I just didn't get, like, I bought a sewing machine. I got this nice Husqvarna. Like, it's like I think a 90s. It was supposed to be nice. And I just couldn't get, like, jazzed about it. And in the meantime, I saw it was on Instagram. And I'm, like, old. So I was just sort of looking at Instagram. And somebody had restored like a vintage axe. And I was like, fuck. I was like, man, that looks nice. And we were living in Washington. And there's blowdowns all the time. So the people are giving away rounds.
Yeah. And
so I was splitting wood. I had like 4 cords of hand split wood just wrapped around this house we were renting. And I was like, man, I could probably use one of these fucking axes. Look good with me. And then I was like, ooh, $400. I was like, yeah, wife's not going to be too excited about that at this point. And for some fucking reason, I thought I could make it. I was like, how? I can do this myself. And like not having any woodworking experience, but it was like...
You had no woodworking experience?
No.
So you were just like, I'm going to cut that tree up. And
Well, yeah, it was like... how hard could it be? You know, like one of these dumb hubris things. You just and at the time, like probably mentally, I was like really fucking poking and hoping. You know, like I was like, man, I need some wins. You know, like I need things to go my way. And I was like, fuck it, which is a great defense mechanism. That's where that kind of that idiot hubris thing kind of helps you, I guess. Which was so I like. And I didn't know at the time, the people that were restoring axes, the vast majority of them were either buying their handles or using like a new old stock vintage handle. Mm-hmm. And they weren't making them, but I didn't know that. And so I was like, God, I got to learn how to fucking make a handle. I was like, I don't have all these tools. I had some tools because, you know, I had a bicycle shop. So I'd work with my hands. So I wasn't unfamiliar with stuff. And I was like, fuck. Like, all right, so I'll go downtown or south of downtown Seattle, and there's this great lumber yard there. And I go in, and it's like totally like a contractor. Not really. I mean, there's some hobbyists in there, but they know what they're doing. Yeah. And I'm just like fucking green as could be. Yeah. And they're like, all right, yeah, it's about this much a board foot. And I was like, what's a fucking board foot? And I'm just walking around, kind of like, hey, I kind of fucking, I know what I'm doing.
Did you know the different types of wood?
I knew I needed hickory.
Okay.
So like that, like little bit of research, hickory is the best wood for striking tools because it has a combination of hardness. Everyone knows it's hard, but it's actually the fibers are flexible. So they take striking. So there's wood that's harder, like a wenge, which is a dark wood. Even this Cadillacs, like there's two colors there. That's the heartwood and the that's actually one piece of wood. That's actually harder than hickory. But it'll, like, when it hits a certain level, it'll just crack. Okay. And so hickory has that flex to it. And there's other things that look cool. Like there's this kind of brown reddish thing. That's a spotted gum from Australia. And that's a beautiful wood. Like when you put, like, that's kind of worn and dingy, but like when you sand it and then put oil on it, it becomes like, you're just like, damn.
Yeah, it looks like it from here.
Everything should be made like with that. But that's actually not as good of a wood. Okay. You know, but it's still good.
It all depends what you're going
for. Yeah.
Right?
And in Australia, that is the wood you would use because like importing a bunch of American hickory is not easy.
So after you got to the contractor shop and bought the wood, how did the rest of it go? That first project, don't tell me you have it.
Yes. I was actually thinking of this, and you've already kind of spotted it. Okay. So I'll keep going. So I buy which is a 8/4 lumber. So it's about 2 inches thick, which is very thick, but that's appropriate for the kind of stuff I still do today. Like, so this, you know, like these handles are all from 8/4, so it's appropriate. But a ton has to be cut away. Didn't have a bandsaw at the time. A neighbor across the street had one, and he was a serious woodworker. Like, you know, you see my shop, it's a fucking mess. I'm that kind of woodworker. Like, there's different shop people. Some people are, you know, I'm not a mad scientist, but like that type. And then there's guys that are like, they'll walk into a room and be like, who the fuck moved them? I got the plane over there. Like, this is fucking bullshit. But and this guy was like that. I was like, oh shit. Like, I'm kind of asking him. I sort of talked to his wife first to kind of guilt him into it, and because he's not he wasn't a person like I doubt he talked to anyone throughout the day. He just wasn't interested. Yeah. And I was like, hey, just cut the 2-dimensional flat part, and not even thinking about like cutting it from above to thin it out, which is so. It left me with so much material to remove. So I picked up an axe head from Craigslist, which is a great place in Washington because everyone, their fucking brother, has a garage somewhere, a house they bought. Somebody was in the lumber industry in Washington, and there's an old axe sitting there. So they're always on Craigslist. You actually got to pick them up quick now. And so I picked this Craftsman up, a pretty decent vintage head, probably like a 1980s, 1970s, so not really old, but like still solidly American steel. And so I got that, and I had the handle with it, and so I just traced the old handle that was split onto the lumber, and I was like, hey, can you cut this out just 2-dimensionally? And then I had this really bullshit draw knife at the time. Like, it was like, you know, Amazon special. You know, it was like 6 inches long. And my dad had heard I was getting into it, and he bought me a rasp, one I still use today, which he was a little bit of a woodworker after the military. Like, he turned pens, and he would make a little bit of furniture and stuff. And this was like his gift, and it was a expensive piece. You know, it's like $125 rasp, which you could easily go to the hardware store and get a $25 rasp today. Yeah. So, but this is like a hand all these tines, I think they're called, were all like hand picked. So it gives like a little bit better finish. And so I had this. And so I just started removing material, and like it's literally taking forever.
Yeah.
And you know, I have this concept of how to do it, and you know, I'm trying to look at YouTube videos and shit, and eventually it starts to arrive at like, all right, this looks like a handle, and like it's not bad. You know, at the time I'm looking at this with fresh eyes, and like I was like, I think this is pretty functional, and then like I go ahead and wedge it how I think I'm supposed to wedge it, and I was like, shit, I started chopping with it, and I was like, hell yeah, this thing fucking works.
Yeah.
It's like I'm doing the thing, and I'm like, you know, I'm getting like a little momentum. I give it to my buddy as Christmas present back in Virginia.
Okay.
So I sent him the first handle, and you know, I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna try this again. So I get the same neighbor to cut me out a piece, and then I think I actually have him thin it out too. Which helps a ton with both like the kind of the accuracy and keeping everything shaped. When you're removing a shit ton of material, it's so easy. Like if you just start removing a little bit too much there, then it's like this thing gets really fucking wompy. Where like if you start with something like it's a thin profile, like you can just, all right, I'm just taking a hair here, hair there. So I made like 3 more, and they're getting better looking. And like even I could kind of see this progression. And like, I think another neighbor, like a friend or something, I'm posting these on my personal Instagram, and they're like, hey, can you make me one? I was like, yeah, man, like, I'll make you one, find another head. And so I give those away too. And then, like, then a friend of a friend asks, like, oh, how much is the thing? It's like, oh, how much?
Like, oh, I could sell it.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I don't know, like $80 or something like that. Of course, these are taking like, I don't know how many hours, like each one at this point, making by hand is taking. It's something like I probably got 40 hours in one handle. Okay. You know, like because it's so again, it's like I'm removing from so much material, and I just don't have the tools, or like the kind of the bravery at first just to fucking start using like a draw knife. Then I got a better draw knife, and even then, I was still not really brave enough to like kind of attack the wood like you really need to, and and that goes on, and then like I get another sort of referral, and then like I started seeing like there's 2-3 accounts probably I followed that really inspired me. 2 of them were like are great collectors, a guy named Josh and another guy named George, and they're one's on the East Coast, one's on the West Coast, and they both have these fantastic collections of historic pieces. Like, so they're all these different axe heads, and they're different patterns, and they have different levels of collectability. It's like Pokemon, right? Right? It's basically Beanie Babies for our generation, right? Like there's old like cool guy Beanie Babies, and just like the history, and like, you know, like at the time, I'm living in this community right off of Tiger Mountain in Issaquah, Washington, and like literally some of the trails I'll go run or hike, they still have the cables that the logging industry have left along. So you're just like engulfed in this history, and you have this imagery. There's another place, Rattlesnake Ridge or Rattlesnake Lake. They have these monstrous old growth stumps on there. Like I have this great picture of my kid on it, where it's, you know, it's got to be 20 feet, you know, across. Like he's just standing on this thing, because it was an old. There used to be a town there before they flooded, or before they had a dam, and they flooded where this town was. And you're just engulfed in it, and you see this Americana, and you're like, I don't know, it's just getting into the kind of spirit of it. And then there was an Australian guy that was a handle maker, and he was a really good photographer too. And he would just capture these pictures of his own handles, and like the emotions that I would get from seeing the pictures, or like how he would do the shading and the curves of it. I was just like, fuck, man, like I want to do that. I want people to see the work and be like, damn. Because I do that. Like shit, I sometimes see the fucking work, like you know, because I have a horrible memory. I'm like a fucking goldfish, and I'll be there and say like, I'll come back to something I've done. I'll be like, fuck, that ain't bad. Like, like that's got the angles. Like, that's where I want to be. And it's just like, it's a nice reinforcing thing. And like, you know, I've become friends with these guys, and ask like tips in a way. You get people that'll be like, oh, how do I do it all?
Yeah. Give me every single secret right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
like teach me how to do everything you do and now.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I can't do it, man. Like, and I'll try and get back to folks and say, hey, just what are you having trouble with? Like, what is the individual question? But so this came back to me this year or was it last year? Yeah, I think technically last year. He finally fucking broke it. So it was 5 years ago.
Okay.
And so this is the OG handle, which I haven't even shared on the Instagrams yet. But he so I knew he was beating the shit out of it, and he was overstriking it. So he's missing the wood and fucking hammering the
that
hell
breaks
out
my
of
heart.
Well,
when we first got the hatchets you made for us, we had someone in a photo shoot, and their first strike that hit the handle. And like the whole staff looked at me and they're like, what's Rob going to do? And I was like, let's just let him do it again. And he hit the handle again. And I was like, all right, we're going to, you're not going to touch that anymore.
Well, that's why I try and tell people, like, it is wood. It will break. Like, this is not this fiberglass kind of setup that like, oh, you just make it out of steel. I have these like fucking Russians always commenting on like YouTube, you just need to make it out of steel, and I'm like,
there's an appreciation for this. That
and your fucking hands will be like melted off in pain from like the vibration. But he chunked it up all to shit. But he used it for 5 years. And I was like, hey man, send it back because I fucking want it. And now I look at it as like, God damn, like it is pretty fucking ugly, but it's also beautiful in a way, right? There's all kinds of technical things that are absolutely wrong with this.
Okay.
Like this is a shelf kind of on here, and you don't want a shelf. You want this tapered fit. You can see the compression right there, which is good, but you want that to go up much higher. And you can see so this is a replication of a handmade handle. So I sell handles for people to do the stuff themselves now.
Oh, no way.
And I sent this 2 handles off to a company that scanned them and then put them on a copying lathe. And so you can see the difference. And it's just a great like personal evolution of like style and going into it. This is also pretty dry too. He never conditioned it, and I could tell like, okay, that was a factor.
Really beating this guy up a lot.
And then
this poor guy
skiing too. He's just everywhere. And so he just smashed the shit out of it. Like I had the wedge in a little too deep, which actually started a crack. So you don't want to bottom out the wedge in this stuff. And but it was actually still tight on the head. He had just snapped the fucking handle.
Interesting.
So it was still like kind of a personal victory. And it's really cool to actually have the very first.
And did you get the head back too?
Yeah. In fact, I have not shipped it back to him yet. So I was like, and he had one of my old sheaths too, which is this. So like I started doing leather a little bit more. And, it's just, again, a fun, like, kind of evolution for me to see this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I made him a new sheath because I was like, hey, look, I'm doing stuff different now. And,
he's
going
to be blown away.
I'm better. And this is another one of my handles that is made on the copying lathe. But of course, being fucking a friend, they're always asking you for something that doesn't exist. And he wanted the laminated sides, which so I had to like actually hand cut the sides off there and then replace them with this catalog wood. And then I did this is just like a coffee stain on here, which is the same way we did for yours. Yeah.
Do you think, I think one of the frustrating things about my life is I feel like everything's really disposable now. Like You get things, whether it's an iPhone or it's like, I'm going to get 2 years out of this iPhone and then buy a new iPhone and operating systems and all this stuff, where there's not many things in my life anymore that I have for a very long period of time. Even cars the electronics are out, and next thing you know, it's like, well, my car just won't start. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And I've had the desire, just like my brother, to pick up, a 98 Tacoma and then just, that's what I'm going to drive for the rest of my life. And I think that's the cool thing about this is your original axe didn't die there. It comes back, the head gets remounted, goes back out. And I feel like the world is feeling that a little bit with, I love social media. I think it's great. I mean, social media is what got you started, right? It's what inspired you. It's how you saw this. It's how you learn. But at the same point in time, it's like I feel like people are gravitating towards real things, which is why axe heads on Craigslist are going faster now, right?
Yeah. So there's like I've not read, I've just heard like quippets about like functional obsolescence. Like design philosophy changed at, I think it was in the 1970s. I'm sure somebody could call me out on that. Where they started purposely building stuff to have a life cycle so they could resell you something.
Yep.
Automobile industry went into it with like modular fixes for things, right? Like you can't, this component it has gone out, but like, oh, I'm sorry, it's part of this whole motherboard. And now you get to, especially like VW. I had VWs when I was younger. And like there, you were like always replacing a fucking module or something. Yeah. And luckily, like there was the forums, you could get a little deeper into it, realize like they're screwing you. I remember the first time I found a forum, the relay for something. It was something so strange. There was a relay that was integrated into the hazard lights switch of whatever I think I had a Passat at the time or something. But it was like some random thing. And it was like $60 part at VW, which if you fucking took it in, they'd be like, oh yeah, we fixed it. It was only 3 hours labor, and we got you on the road for $300 or whatever it would be. And that's where I started just like, that, and it already, with the bike shop, like I was used to fixing things. And seeing the same trend in the bike industry too, where that functional obsolescence, like anyone will tell you, that's a true bike fan. The best components were made was 8-speed XTR, like that. You can't tell somebody that anything functions better than that, because it doesn't. Like having worked on things and seeing like tolerances that are like in real world tolerances, shifting gears, like. When you start having so many gears or so little tolerance on the rear of like a cassette and like, and in your gearing, if you're on a mountain bike and the fucking, you're having all this madness going on there, it's like having a little bit of slop in there is a good thing. Like it's like, like my diesel truck out there, like, there's a reason there's not a ton of horsepower in it is because the thing's not like cranked to the max. It doesn't have a turbo on it. It's not forcing anything, and the tolerances there are pretty wide. Yeah. But it's always going to fucking start.
Exactly.
It's got a Hilux engine in it, so it's got the engine you want. That'll be here for the end of time.
Exactly.
So yeah, like the axes are the same way. Like finding things that are serviceable is really kind of, I think, what you're at. Like nice shoes. These look like nice shoes that you could probably resole. Yeah, absolutely. Like you would send.
And that's what I intend on doing with these boots. And I think that when I buy boots, I buy them with one of two purposes. One's like, this is my fashion boot for this year. Yeah. That at the end of the year it's going to go away, or they're forever boots where you resole them and you keep wearing them and they get better.
Yeah, and I've heard there's tricky discussions about it because, let's say a guy that's working a construction job, he doesn't necessarily have like the capital to just be like, okay, I'm going to spend $350 on a pair of boots. I know that I only need to spend like, every 3 years, $80 to resole, but I can spend $90, $90 once a year. And so it is a luxury. It is like, and part of, just having handles available for people to do is like, this is a luxury handle. It is nicer. It's nicer lumber. It is made from a handmade handle. But you can do it yourself. So you can buy a project from me for $400 to $600, or for $80. Here's the same handle I'm probably using, certainly the same pattern, and then you could do it yourself. And the benefit there is going to be you've like what you get from it is like the next step. Like in my development for the company is like, how do I make more people feel
the connection?
I got like what I've gotten from this is like, whether it be confidence, personal enjoyment. I don't think everyone's going to go and suddenly become a restorer of this, like axe heads or something. That's, that'd be ridiculous. But just doing it once or sharing it with a buddy, sharing it with a kid, Boy Scout troop or something, like it's neat. And it gets the mind thinking on other things too, which I think is super important.
You started out with thinking, I'm going to make shorts.
Yeah.
And then somehow shorts turned into axes, and now that turned into this. And I think it is a lot of those like little key things that they'll spark something in your brain, and then maybe that won't work, but you move to something else. And I mean, who knows what actually putting together an axe would make someone think, what else can I put together?
Yes. And that's 100% what it is. And I realized, like, when I was like, couldn't get a job, I'm depressed, self-loathing, and all these, like, I'm steeped in it, and the shit weather in Washington, and I'm like, I'm at wit's end, and I was looking for some fucking wins, and I realized, like, a lot of it was mindset, which you can't just snap out of. Like, like, I'm not saying, like, I wasn't mentally ill, or, I don't know, maybe I was, but I wasn't at a point where I could just snap out of it. I needed some small wins, and I mentally thought about, like, these small steps I could do, whether I was around my house or my kids. I have 3 kids. What can I do? And it came down to 15 minutes for me, honestly. Like, there was a time where the lowest of lows, I was like, I'm just trying to get through the next 15 minutes. And if I get through these 15 minutes, it's going to be great. And I'm going to try another 15 minutes right afterwards. But if I fuck it up, or like, like whether I'm yelling at my kids, or like I'm thinking the negative thoughts again, I'm not going to kick my own ass. I'm going to start the next 15 minutes, try again, fresh slate. Let's just roll with it. Don't beat yourself up.
That's insane to hear. Because one, you're a handsome dude.
Well, yeah, obviously,
right? Handsome dude. You're very tall, right?
Yeah, tall.
These are two things. If you told me I'm a handsome dude, I'm tall, and I make the most gorgeous axes ever, I was sitting in Black Rifle Coffee 2 days ago, like watching your commercial loop, and just like looking up and be like, that's the dude right there, and then to hear that that's great. That's it's like it seems like such a departure from who I'm sitting next to now.
That dude did not exist. You say everything was there, but like, I was a shadow of myself in that period. Like, I closed my bicycle shop. It wasn't, it was open for 11 years. So it wasn't like a failure. But, it's like I didn't sell it. There wasn't really anything to sell. And I got some great experiences from it. And I don't fucking miss it at all. Like, if people ask that all the time.
I've never heard anyone miss a bike shop.
Yeah, like it's
I like bike shops, but I've never heard anyone be like, I miss having my bike shop.
It is cool. It's all the things that you hope it's going to be, but it's this pile of other shit, like running a business, like there's fucking payroll, there's your fucking rent, which was the number one driver to number one problem. That was the one that was out of skew the most, but. A lot of customers that come in, like these, whether it's a doctor or a lawyer, they're like, oh man, when I retire, like I really want to open a bike shop. I'm like, what the fuck would you want to do that for? like Jesus Christ, like you've been working this whole time, like you're gonna work harder.
Yeah, it's,
like
it's
I guarantee you, like like you're gonna work harder for a lot less pay, and like having to deal with like sometimes shitty customers. And then, like good customers too, but it's like that's not. We don't just, he's like, oh man, sit around, work around and drink coffee and work on bikes. It's like, it's not, that's not all.
What's this customer base look like? Because I feel like when we started our company, when we were very, very small, customers were just happy to work with us.
Yeah.
And then as we grew, we started to get customers that didn't understand the backstory. They didn't understand the product as much. And they wanted shipping as fast as Amazon. Or they started, and all of a sudden it was like, wait, who? I love that we have new customers, but who are they? And I feel like you're in a really cool spot where if you're buying, like I would assume if I commissioned a custom axe with the axe head that my grandfather took, it'd be like, oh, I'll see you in 5 months and it's going to be pretty expensive. Yeah. It's what I would expect because I know that I'm paying for the craftsmanship and all this extra.
I think now there's all of the above.
Okay.
I think there's plenty of people that do not know like my story. Not that I haven't really like overly shared it, or like there's some people that have been here since the beginning.
Okay.
And I'm also small, like I'm also not huge, like sales, like on purpose. Like part of it, the way I designed to grow, unfortunately, is limited by my need to go skiing.
Okay.
To be outdoors.
Oh, so you're like a normal local person.
Yeah. So I even joke about it. Like, hey, it's ski season. Everything takes longer now, and it's like depending on like POW days and like that kind of thing. And I didn't start skiing till I moved to Washington. I'm 41. Like when I started skiing, I'm 46 now. So I've only got 5 years, but of course, like now it's 60 or 70 days a year I ski. Just because
Okay.
I just fucking love it. I like being on a mountain every season.
Yeah.
So like it's trail running or hiking in the summer, and in the winter, I love that. Like, okay, hiking's done. So there's fucking
the
snow
business
all over.
works around your life.
Yeah, it has to.
Yeah,
it has to,
awesome.
and like because I know the other way around.
Yeah.
I know when the fucking business runs you.
Yeah.
And I did that for 11 years, and like you're bending over backwards, scratching for every customer, and ultimately like some of those customers are going to be there for you if you needed something or whatever. But like for the most part, like it's a transaction.
Yeah.
It's a transactional relationship, and it's not offensive to me that like somebody just wants the thing. Like that's fine. Like that's cool. But I'm going to do my thing, and I think as I grow, I'm trying to figure out how to do that and maintain like what I consider is the best life that you could ever have. I literally can't think of a different way to spend my day or my year. I get lots of time with my kids. I'm the cook of the house, so like I'm doing all the grocery shopping. Like I'm Mr. Mom. And I get to do this and noodle in my shop. This is space like we joked about. This is the most amount of people that have ever been in the space. And it's, myself, I sit here, I got podcasts on, I got the stereo cranking. In the summertime, we got the, that garage doors open and the fire pit's out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm burning scraps, and like it doesn't get any more peaceful. I can, see the lake, the mountains out the back. And, it's not worth it. There's not enough money. Well, maybe there's enough. We always talk. There's not really enough money to change that, because I feel like I backed into, and I lucked out, because I consider it lucky, that I have what a lot of people are searching for or working hard for. I know lots of CEOs that would love to ski 60 days a year and live in a mountain town and do all these things. And so I try and have that mindset of being very grateful and realizing it is luck. You have to work hard. You have to put in the work. But ultimately, like, it's either your time or it's not.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a lot of ways to manufacture success, I don't think. Most of the people I see that have like a formula, it's certainly the right direction, and it's not bad advice, but all the work, all the hustle can still leave you without anything. But there's value in the hustle, right? Mm-hmm. There's value in putting in that work and learning something and grinding towards something. But you got to remember that might be the only thing that you get from it.
Yeah.
It may not produce riches and wealth, and it may not get you the success that you sort of were hoping for, and then realize maybe what the biggest gift was all that internal hustle or that drive. And then maybe, like if you can pivot, all right, what's the next thing that maybe we can get and gear towards that will give me the success I am looking for, maybe. And like, can I use that same hustle, that same attitude, and get lucky in something else? Like it's, whether it's meeting you guys or the fact that Andy and Black Rifle's right here, those are both kind of lucky, fortuitous things, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, like I didn't have a clue what Flag Nor Fail was. I guess I knew Black Rifle Coffee, but I didn't know, I didn't know Andy. Yeah. And then just even with that, there's people like whether it's Jordan or some of the folks that were starting Black Rifle, the franchise here, that connected us. Yeah. That produced something that has helped immensely, right?
I think that's one of the cool things about the small valley is like all the cool, I don't say cool people, but like-minded people eventually find each other. And you start building up little networks like that.
It is really neat. There are a ton of like entrepreneur-minded folks, and
well, you almost have to be out here.
Yeah.
There isn't as many just applying for a random job.
How did you guys pick Whitefish? Or
how did I pick Whitefish?
Or Kalispell?
Wowie.
Where were you? Because you live in Whitefish, right?
Yeah, so I live in Whitefish. I mean, we're between Whitefish and Columbia Falls, but my parents, their last vacation, they were like, we're going to have a kid.
Okay.
This is our last vacation. So they took the Amtrak train all the way out, and they hiked Glacier for 2 weeks.
The Empire Builder.
They took all their photos.
Yeah.
And then we never went on vacation. So growing up, I saw photos of vacation. Okay. And they're like, this is what vacation is.
Yeah.
And my whole life, I was like, man, one day I'm going to grow up and get married and go on a vacation.
Yeah.
So my whole life, that was the only vacation I knew. And then when I met Dana, our first big vacation was to Montana.
No kidding.
And we came out here. We stayed in Columbia Falls, and I was like, wow.
What year is that?
I'm on the spot with a year. Maybe 2007, 2006.
Okay.
So we came out to Columbia Falls once a year.
Yeah.
And we would come out every single year. We brought my brother out, and then we would imagine,
why the fuck are we leaving?
One day we're going to retire. We're going to retire.
Oh, okay.
And that was always the thought. Is like,
someday.
We retired at 65.
Yeah.
And when we retire, that's where we're going to live, right? I had all these like things in my head of
totally.
All these rules of life that I thought.
And Flag was already going at that point.
Yeah. Flag started in 2009. So we were doing Flag Nor Fail, and then we would sort of escape and come here. And this was, with traveling the whole entire world, this was the one place that Dana said, like, I don't want to leave here.
Yeah.
We go to Australia, and we go to all these different places for appearances. And this was the place she didn't want to leave, and it was Columbia Falls. And then we came here, and I think people always said, don't go to Whitefish. It's too rich.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
And
totally sucks.
And then one day we got sushi in Whitefish, and I was like, I didn't realize there was a sushi restaurant here. Like, I only need one. And we started shopping, and we had the conversation like, wait, so we're gonna live our whole life, and then wait until we're 65 to actually do the thing we want. Who made this timeline up? So within the matter of a week, I came back Monday. And I said, Drew, do you want to move to Montana? And he was like, yes. And I was like, all right. And I flew back Friday. I flew back Friday, bought a warehouse on Saturday, the little Glacier Steel building.
Okay.
And then within 30 days, we were just out. No shit. It was the second we realized we could do it.
And you were in PA? We
were in PA, yeah.
Where in PA? My wife's from
So we
Pittsburgh.
were in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Is that central? No, that's outside of Philly, right?
It's a little outside of Philly. It's like between Philly and Harrisburg. Okay. We had a great property. We lived on 40 acres.
Yeah.
And I loved it, but you can't beat here.
No.
You can't.
No.
With everything, every single season, I don't think you can beat Montana.
No, once I figured out the puzzle of winter sports, because I wanted to be outside, like I always complained about Virginia. I had this formula in my head of usable days.
Okay.
And because I'm a big fat guy that I like running, and I'm slow, but I like running in these trail runnings, ultras and stuff. And in the summer, in fucking Virginia, I'd fucking die. I literally cannot consume enough water for what's going out on my square inches, and it's it would be miserable. So I was always training sort of in the fall off season and through the winter, because the winter's not really bad there. And I was like, God, this kind of sucks. And we had a pool in our backyard, which is the only way we sort of survived summer. And but I didn't grow up doing winter sports at all.
Okay.
That was kind of I don't even know if my parents would have been against it per se, but in my mind, I was like, that's always what the rich kids did. Like they, they'd go like spring break, and my dad's flying them to.
We had to travel somewhere.
Right,
like
right.
Even snow. I didn't grow up. I grew up snowboarding in my backyard.
Okay.
But never went to mountains because it was, you have to rent somewhere. You have to do all these different things. And then here, it's like, oh no, it's 5 minutes from my house. I just drive there. I can go before work, and it's no big deal. So this area has that variety.
Yeah, it's crazy. So like once we solved that with, we were in Washington, COVID's hitting, and we were looking to be refugees pretty quick. Mm-hmm. The Washington was just fucking weird. Like that Seattle area, we're in King County, and just like the lockdowns and like the shit school situation with like the kids, you can just tell they're not learning shit.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to go to Skeet Town, so like I didn't even know Whitefish. I'd heard Whitefish because we actually came through Glacier and then down through Kalispell when I drove out with a buddy when I was moving to Washington. But we looked at Bend, and like I was trying to find like smaller, affordable towns or whatever. And like I wasn't going to Vail, I wasn't going to Telluride. Those things weren't in our budget. And we just got super fucking lucky because when I finally convinced my wife is like, she's a fighter pilot. Like she's a former, Navy fighter pilot. So she's always action oriented. I'm always the one like, oh, well, let's think about the best way, that kind of shit. And, but then like my argument finally won with her, and she was like, all right, we're looking right away. And like, so we just started mapping out these like towns, looking at real estate all the time. And like, I think it was a week later, it's a similar story to you guys.
Yeah.
Like a week later, we see three possibilities, and one of them was this house. And there was like a Friday, hit a button to contact a realtor. I drove out on a Sunday morning, like 3 a.m., come looking at them, and we landed on this one. This one had like really shitty photos of it, and like there was some, we've done a bunch. Well, you can see they're still remodeling now. But it was horrible pictures. They almost looked like...
they were trying not to sell it.
The realtor was older, and I think they were almost like pictures, like printed pictures that had been scanned. Like it was just really shitty quality. Yeah. And I was like, I'll check this one out. But as soon as like I turned the corner, I was like, it was like October, so it was still really pretty.
Yeah.
The fucking leaves are changing. I was like, Jesus. I was like,
this place is awesome.
This is all right. And then like I found these workshops underneath because it's still got a garage up top, and I was like, holy shit. And it was just this only bubble where there was a dip in the market in 2020. Yep. Like it's like, and then right after that, like
there was like 3 months where it was like that was your chance.
And that was it. And we couldn't. We can't afford to live here now. There's no way we could buy into it now. So we got super lucky. And we have a lot of friends that are like, and I have sympathy for folks that have been priced out.
I like how you've said this a lot. You've said I got super lucky. I got super lucky. I got super lucky. But it also seems like all the decisions that got you here, you've made all those decisions. And I don't want to take away the humble lucky thing you're trying to do right now, but at the same point in time, like you're the one who decided to. I mean, you could have kept fighting with a bike shop, and I think that.
Well, I did for a long time.
ending projects sometimes takes, because a lot of people identify. They're like, I'm the bike shop guy. If this closes, then my life's a failure, especially after 11 years.
Well, it's like I didn't think that like in month 1 or 2 after, I was like, it was like almost like this freedom. It's like, God damn, like I don't have to pay these vendors anymore. Like, we didn't have to do bankruptcy. It wasn't clean, but it was clean enough that nobody hired lawyers and everyone sorted things out. And like, I was really proud of like wrapping it up. It was actually probably the best business move I ever made, was wrapping it up the way I did. We just one day I was like, we got to close. Yeah. And it was 3 weeks later, and it was like,
what I'm saying is I'm going to take away from your luck thing, because that's not luck. That's hard work. I understand that. And then taking the risk to even, try the shorts, move to the axes, chase down people, figure out how to do the axes, have the balls to leave where you're at and move somewhere else to a mountain town, to structure your life the way you want. to then get so good at this craft that you can sell axes for that much money.
Sounds better when you say it.
And then not only that, but like you're telling me you're on the mountain this many days and your work's curated around your life. Like not much of that, from my perspective, sounds like luck. That all sounds like you made a bunch of really solid decisions, even pulling yourself out of the depression. So you can say it's luck all day.
Yeah.
I'm saying you're like a mastermind of life.
Well, failing forward is a really kind of my advice to somebody. It's like fail forward. Like keep on trying. Whether you learn what you don't like. Like I had the bike shop for 11 years, and there was almost zero like personal growth. As I aged, as I had kids, like I wasn't really maturing. Like I was able to kind of stay a kid, like in a shop, like cussing and farting like all day. It was great. But and so I think it's probably similar to like I have a lot of friends. Obviously, my wife was in the military. A lot of friends that like you leave the military or you leave something, and that was your identity. That was your thing. And I think that the adjustments in life are tricky. Like a lot of people don't stay in a career, especially even our generation. Don't stay in a career that long, so the connection or the identity with something isn't so seated like it was for a decade, and so it didn't hit me until 3 months later, and then subsequently longer and longer periods of like rejection, literal rejection, trying to get a job, and I was like, God damn, I was like, I got some skills, like I ran this business for like 11 years, like. How are you not hiring me for this entry level thing? And I was super like, hey, I got to start at the bottom. Like that was the mentality. It wasn't like, oh, I should probably come in here and be a director or something. Like I was like, no, like, hey, like I'm motivated.
Yeah.
Let's get it going. Because I went out to Washington. I was like, there's tons of outdoor industry out there. I was like, sweet. Like this is going to be a breeze. Like I would hire me. I even interviewed I started to interview for a fucking job with REI.
Okay.
REI, fuckers. And that's why you're firing everybody now, because you didn't hire me.
Yeah, you could have fixed it all.
For a bike shop merchandiser, for their corporate, because their corporate headquarters is out there.
Yeah.
And just like to plan, like, all right, here's where all the lubes are and your tubes and stuff.
Yeah, stuff that you've done for 11 years.
I was like, they did a screening, and then the hiring manager didn't want. And subsequently, I've learned more about corporate. Like, oh, there was already somebody that was probably picked, and like, but I was like, you didn't even want the fucking conversation, like, even to steal ideas from me, or like, like I'm actually doing the fucking thing. I'm not a corporate stiff.
Yeah.
Why don't you figure out what's like current? Like, what are people looking at? Because I guarantee that corporate fucking dude
has no idea.
No, because he's just riding his bike and eating granola bars at the cafe at REI headquarters.
Well, I'm glad you pivoted and figured out what you are actually good at. Not that you're not good at the bike thing, but the axes are pretty amazing. And I think that you're going to show us today how to assemble one. I'm going to do it.
You're going to do it.
I didn't realize I was doing it.
Yeah, on camera.
All right, I'm here for it.
On camera, one take.
One take. All right, I'm ready.
All right. Thanks for watching the Progress Over Everything podcast. Next week, we'll be back to our normally scheduled programming where I'm not sitting in this room talking to myself, and you're going to love it. I hope. I hope you love this. Good night, Dana.
Good night, Dana.
Good luck, Gage.